Probably my favorite experiment of all time is called Aquarium Funk. That's what I call it. What I do is I suck detritus out of the bottom of the fish tank with an aquarium siphon. I direct it into an old vinegar bottle, which I place in a 5-gallon bucket to keep it from tipping over and spilling. Place the other end of the siphon into the vinegar bottle, and the large end of the siphon is used to gravity feed the water to create a sucking effect to pull detritus, can you see that, from the bottom of the fish tank. So not only does it help clean the fish tank, but these have lots of protozoans and rotifers, and a lot of times I will pick up some of the Java weed and then I'll place that in the sample, and the students will have an awesome experience. Probably the funnest experiment ever. It doesn't cost any money other than just some of the tools to retrieve it. You don't have to order it, you don't have to wait on it. It's right in your fish tank. This is Brother Barnes. Keep coming back. Let's talk about best practices and easy practices. Once I obtain the original Aquarium Funk sample, this is detritus from the bottom of the fish tank, what I will do is I will allow this about 30 minutes to settle down, pour the top off, eventually settle, decant, settle, decant enough times that most of the detritus is at the bottom. When there is enough to fit into a beaker, I then pour all of this into the beaker, and then I use a little pipette to suck out the detritus to put onto the slide to make a wet mount for the student. It works great, and I'm going to also go over the wet mount here in a few minutes. The only other thing I would like to add is that the Java weed that I have, this right here, this stuff, this Java weed, is very, very helpful because a lot of times it will have different protozoans attached to it. Earlier I said protozoans and rotifers. I really meant to say nematodes, worms. There are lots of worms in this detritus, so this is going to make an awesome activity, and it's low budget, low tech, isn't it? Cool. This is Brother Barnes back again. We're going to talk about the Aquarium Funk experiment. It is a low tech, low cost, low budget, awesome microscope experiment. What we do is we suck detritus from the bottom of the fish tank into a vinegar jug, and I have allowed this to settle for about 45 minutes. So as I explained earlier, pour off most of the liquid, and the detritus will still be at the bottom. That's where most of the critters will be located. So let's keep pouring this off until we get right about enough that we think would fit into a 1000 ml beaker. Yeah, there we go. There is some aquarium nasty. I call that real Aquarium Funk. Once this settles down, we will use the pipette to pull out the sample to put onto a slide to make a wet mount. I will talk about that in a few minutes. Once the sample has settled after being poured into the 1000 milliliter beaker, pour off most of this water until you have maybe a couple of inches still left in the bottom. That's about enough right there. And what I do is between classes, I make sure that I put this under a light source where it doesn't get cold. I don't want to say heat lamp, that sounds too hot, but keeping the sample warm will also keep the critters active. Once we get ready to make a wet mount, notice that I have a lot of Java weed in here. And sometimes what I do is I just simply take scissors and cut that up into smaller pieces. And as I suck samples out of the bottom, as you can see here, then I'll put a piece of Java weed and some of the Aquarium detritus onto the wet mount, and it's gonna be awesome. This is gonna be a great experiment. Cheap, but fun. Let's make a wet mount. I have a slide, I have a cover slip, which is kind of difficult to see. By the way, if there's anything that will cut you, this will do it, so be careful when dealing with the cover slip. Let us obtain some sample from this deep corner of our Aquarium Funk. Let's drop it on here. Yes, that's pretty nasty. A lot of times I like to see if I can get a piece of Java weed. There we go. No, that's not it. There we go. There's some right there. I touch this quite regularly. Kind of nasty. Place the cover slip on top of it and kind of just gently press that down. Don't press it hard, because remember, that could easily crack. That is a wet mount preparation. Not very clean and beautiful to look at, I will say, but when we look at this under the microscope, usually we see some living critters. I have located a rather active fish mite, I think. Kind of an arachnid looking thing, underwater arachnid. Clarity, please. Kind of gives you the creeps thinking about what could be in the lake with you while you're swimming around. Remember that neatness is not really one of the things I would use to describe an Aquarium Funk wet mount. They usually don't disappoint. I had to go through several slides to find some fish mites that I could show you. Normally there are lots of worms and lots of things swimming around. Remember that every fish tank is different, and it takes a while for some fish tanks to become established enough to have an abundance of protozoans and nematodes and the like. As a rule, if I have 6 groups in a lab, I will usually have 3 of the groups that will find moving things. So that's why it's important to place the scopes on the outer edge of the table so that people can move around and have the experience and make a little drawing of the critter that they find once they find it.